March 1989, a vacant lot in Kōtō Ward, Tokyo. A crew of police officers stands around a steel drum, an ordinary industrial container packed solid with concrete. It is far too heavy for its size. When they finally break it open, they do not find construction waste. They find a young woman, a 17-year-old high school student who had been missing for months, sealed inside so that no one would ever find her. Her name was Junko Furuta, and when people tell her story, they almost always talk about 4 teenage boys and the things those 4 boys did. But sit with this case long enough, and you realize the most disturbing part isn't the 4. It's the number of people who knew, the ones who heard the cries through the floor, the ones who carried food up the stairs, the ones who opened a door and told her to go home without ever once picking up a phone. This is the story of Junko Furuta and the house that heard everything. Welcome back. It's Inspector Dax. Everything you're about to hear is real people, real evidence, and a truth that someone worked hard to keep buried. My job is simple: open the file, lay it out piece by piece, and let you judge it for yourself. So let's get to work. To understand why this case still haunts Japan more than 30 years later, we have to go back to a time when Junko was simply a girl with her whole life in front of her. She was born on January 18, 1971, in Misato, a quiet suburb in Saitama Prefecture, just outside Tokyo. She grew up in an ordinary family: a father who worked to support the household, a stay-at-home mother, an older brother, and a younger brother, not wealthy but steady and warm. What people remembered about Junko wasn't her circumstances, it was her. She was a strong student, rarely absent, well-liked by classmates and teachers alike. She didn't drink, didn't smoke, the very picture of a good kid, and yet she was cheerful and genuinely popular. By 16, she was already working part-time at a plastic molding factory, saving up for the class graduation trip, and she had a dream. According to her friends, Junko hoped one day to become an idol singer. Here is what makes this story ache. Junko wasn't a girl who had lost her way. She had done everything right. She had taken that factory job in the autumn of 1988 to save for the trip, and she had already interviewed for and been offered a position waiting for her at an electronics retailer. Hers the moment she graduated. Her life, by every measure, was opening up. She was only weeks away from a brand new chapter. She just never reached it. Friday evening, November 25, 1988. Junko finished her shift at the factory sometime after 8 and started wheeling her bicycle home the way she did every night. The road home was empty, lit by only a scattering of street lamps. What Junko didn't know was that 2 young men were circling Misato on a motorcycle that night with a clear purpose: to find a woman to rob and to attack. The one giving the orders was 18-year-old Hiroshi Miyano. They spotted her. On Miyano's instruction, his accomplice sped up and kicked Junko off her bike, then vanished into the dark. Seconds later, a second young man appeared, Miyano himself, playing the role of a passerby who just happened to be there. He helped her up, warm and concerned. He told her the man who'd attacked her was a dangerous figure from the criminal underworld, that she was being followed, and that he would walk her home to keep her safe. This is the cruelest part of the entire setup. The person who created the danger and the person who offered to save her from it were the same man. In the panic and confusion right after that fall, Junko believed the boy in front of her was a good person. But once he had led her somewhere quiet, Miyano dropped the act. He admitted he was connected to the man who'd knocked her down, claimed to be a member of the underworld himself, and issued a cold ultimatum: do as he said and live, resist and die. That night she was taken to a hotel and assaulted. Afterward, Miyano called his friends to brag, and one of them, 17-year-old Joe Ogura, said the words that would seal her fate: don't let her go. Before dawn, they brought her to a park where the other 3 were waiting. They went through her bag, found a notebook with her home address, and turned it into a weapon. If she ran, they told her, her family would pay the price. And this is the thing to understand. So we never ask the cruel question of why she didn't just escape. Junko didn't comply because she was weak. She complied because they had built a trap in which her own obedience felt like the only way to protect her parents and her little brothers. Every day she stayed. She believed she was keeping the people she loved safe. They took her to the home of 16-year-old Shinji Minato in the Ayase district of Adachi Ward, Tokyo, a 2-story house. Junko was confined to a room on the 2nd floor. She would remain in that room for more than 40 days. Now I want you to picture that house not as a crime scene, but as a series of rings, one inside the other. At the center is Junko, and surrounding her, ring after ring, are the people who should have been a wall between her and the men who held her, and who instead became a door left open. The innermost ring was the 4 who took her, along with dozens of other teenagers who came and went from that room over the following weeks as if it were a hangout. A great many people walked through that doorway. A great many people saw. I am not going to detail what Junko endured in that room, not to look away from it, but because some suffering shouldn't be turned into entertainment a second time. You only need to know this. She was abused over and over in body and in mind. Her physical condition deteriorated, and her injuries were never treated. When the coroner finally examined her, the report recorded more than 100 separate wounds across her body. That number, by itself, tells you everything. And the cruelty wasn't only physical. On one occasion, Miyano lied to her, telling her that her father had just been killed in a traffic accident, only to watch her collapse in grief and then laugh and say he was joking. It was cruelty aimed straight at the heart. Now move outward to the rings that make this case unlike almost any other. On November 27th, Junko's parents reported their daughter missing. To shut the search down, the captors forced Junko to phone home 3 separate times and say she was fine, that she'd simply gone to stay with a friend and needed some space. Her parents, hearing nothing obviously wrong in her voice, believed her, and the police stepped back. Then Shinji's father returned from a trip and heard noise upstairs. His son explained that Junko was his girlfriend and asked him not to interfere. He didn't interfere. Shinji's mother saw the strange girl on the 2nd floor. She told Junko to go home, but she never asked why a girl was living in her house for days on end, never walked her to the door, never called anyone. She simply told her to leave, as though Junko were free to do so. Shinji's older brother lived on that same floor. He knew. Now and then he quietly brought her milk and bread, but he was too frightened to call the police. And Shinji's parents, directly downstairs, at times heard her cry out for help. They didn't come up. They were more afraid of the boys, more afraid of the gang connections those boys boasted about, than they were of what was happening to a human being just above their heads. You can see the shape of it now. This is a geometry of indifference. One layer at a time, everything that should have been a barrier between Junko and her captors became instead a door held open. And then, one night, one of those doors very nearly closed. Around the 13th day of her captivity, while the boys were drunk and sleeping heavily, Junko forced herself downstairs, reached the telephone, and dialed the police. One call, a few more sentences, and it all could have ended right there. But Miyano woke up. He grabbed the receiver, hung up, then called the operator back and calmly told them it had just been a prank by his friends, and the police took him at his word. No one came to check. No one called back. If there is a single if only in this entire story, it lives in that moment. One call, one follow-up, one adult willing to step forward to punish her for that act of defiance. The boys inflicted the injuries that would leave her unable to walk. The last door had swung shut. By the first days of January 1989, Junko was a shadow of herself, barely conscious, her body wrecked by wounds that had gone untreated for weeks. January 4th, 1989. The night before, Miyano had lost a large sum gambling at mahjong. He carried that meaningless rage back to the house and turned it on Junko in a final, fatal assault. She died that day from traumatic shock brought on by her injuries. She was 17 years old, only weeks from the graduation trip she had spent a whole year saving for. When they realized Junko was dead, the boys' only concern was not getting caught. They found a steel drum, placed her body inside, and filled it with wet concrete to seal it shut. There is one detail that captures the warped humanity of these killers. It said Miyano was superstitious, afraid her spirit would come back for revenge. The drum was dumped in a vacant lot in the Wakasu area of Kōtō Ward. Then they scrubbed everything clean, destroyed anything connected to her, and convinced themselves they would never be found. For nearly 3 months, they were right. The most bitter irony of this case is that justice arrived not through brilliant detective work, but through an accident. In early 1989, Miyano and Ogura were arrested for a completely separate attack on another young woman, a case that had nothing to do with Junko. On March 29th, officers came to question them again. Women's underwear had been found at Miyano's home, tying him to still other assaults. And it was there, in that interview room, that Miyano made a fatal mistake. He assumed the police already knew about Junko. He believed Ogura had confessed everything, and so, in his panic, it was Miyano himself who blurted out where her body was hidden. But the police hadn't been asking about Junko at all. They were stunned. Miyano led them to the drum. Inside, her body had decomposed so badly that she could only be identified by her fingerprints. From the phone calls the boys had once forced her to make, investigators traced their way back to the Minato family home and arrested the rest. In total, 7 people were implicated and charged with 4 ringleaders: Miyano, Ogura, Minato, and 17-year-old Yasushi Watanabe, who at the time of the crime ranged from just 16 to 18 years old. Because of its unprecedented severity, the case went to trial at the Tokyo District Court. It's said that inside the courtroom people fainted as the details were read aloud. But here, Japan's legal system of that era ran headlong into its own wall. All 4 were legally juveniles, and in court, they pleaded guilty to a lesser charge, causing bodily injury resulting in death rather than murder. Their defense argued they never intended to kill her. The result was a set of sentences that enraged the entire country. Miyano, the ringleader, was initially given 17 years. After he himself appealed, the Tokyo High Court rejected the appeal and added 3 more years, bringing it to 20. Ogura received 5 to 10 years, Minato 5 to 9, Watanabe 5 to 7. For a crime that stretched over more than 40 days, the public had expected the harshest possible punishment, even life imprisonment or death. Japanese law normally shields the identities of juvenile defendants, but one Japanese magazine chose to publish all 4 of their real names on the grounds that cruelty this extreme forfeited any right to anonymity. As for restitution, Miyano's mother sold the family home to pay 50 million yen to Junko's family. Junko's parents also won a civil suit against Shinji's parents, the people who had been inside that house the entire time. But when the defendants' families asked to kneel and apologize, Junko's family refused. No sum of money, no apology could buy back a chapter that never got to begin. So why were the sentences so light? Part of the answer is technical. The 4 were juveniles, and they were convicted not of murder, but of causing bodily injury resulting in death, with the courts weighing the argument that there had been no clear plan to kill and that there was a single victim. It's worth sitting with how strange that felt to the public, because around that same era, adults convicted in comparable cases in Japan had faced death sentences and life in prison. The gap between what she suffered and what they received is a large part of why this case never faded. There is also a darker claim that surfaces again and again, though it has never been proven, that Miyano boasted of ties to the Yakuza, and that this shadow, real or invented, played some role in how gently the system treated him. Whether that's true or simply another of his lies, no one can say for certain. And there is one more loose thread that should never be forgotten. Over those weeks, dozens of teenagers reportedly passed through that second-floor room, some to take part, some simply to watch. Only 7 people were ever charged. Most of those who came and went were never identified, never questioned, never held to account for anything at all. The true number of people who had a hand in what happened to Junko, or who saw it and said nothing, has never been established. It may never be. Japan's juvenile justice system rested on a belief that the goal was not punishment, but rehabilitation, that children who had gone wrong could still be turned into someone new. So, did it work? Look at what happened after these men walked free. Watanabe, by most accounts, was the only one of the 4 who never ran into legal trouble again. The other 3 were a different story. Miyano returned to his old criminal world and was later arrested for fraud. Ogura changed his name to Joe Kamisaku. In 2004, he abducted and beat a man for hours over a personal grievance, reportedly telling his victim that he had killed before and would do it again. For that assault, he went back to prison for roughly 7 more years. And Minato, in 2018, was arrested for attacking a man with a baton and a knife. A Japanese magazine described these repeat offenses for exactly what they were: the defeat of the juvenile law. Change did not come right after Junko's case. It took years and further tragedies before Japan finally tightened its laws and lowered the age of criminal responsibility. And the uncomfortable question the case left behind is still with us today. When we protect the identity and offer leniency to a young offender, are we giving a child the chance to start over, or are we shielding a predator? It is easy to call those 4 boys monsters. It's comforting even, because a monster is something separate, something foreign, something that isn't us. But the truth is far more haunting than that, because what killed Junko Furuta wasn't only 4 pairs of hands. It was an entirely ordinary machinery of indifference. A mother who looked away, a father who never asked, neighbors who feared inconvenience more than they valued a life, and a call for help that no one bothered to return. After she was gone, Junko's school still held its graduation ceremony for her. The principal presented her diploma to an empty chair. Her classmates wrote her farewell messages, and one line among them lands like a stone: "We graduated together, after all." She had dreamed of standing on a stage and singing. She had been saving for a trip with her friends. She was only 17. If there is one thing you carry away from this case, let it be this: the opposite of cruelty is not kindness. It's the refusal to look away. Every single person in that house had a moment when they could have stepped forward, and they chose silence. So don't remember the names of those 4. Remember hers, Junko Furuta. And that's where we close the file for today. I've been Inspector Dax. If this case stayed with you, drop your thoughts below. Your theories help keep these stories from being forgotten. Subscribe, and there'll be a new file waiting on my desk. For now, goodbye, and I'll see you next time.